I ran into my secretly married wife at a bar. She was holding hands with her first love. I was with my lover. Just 10 minutes earlier. We had updated each other on our whereabouts. She said she had a meeting. I said I had to work late. In front of others. We tacitly pretended not to know each other, shaking hands with polite and friendly smiles. But when we got home that night, she suddenly grabbed me, smiling dangerously. You're really playing the field. Huh. Hubby. Chapter 01. I turned to leave the moment I saw Susanna at the bar. But my dumbass friend yanked me back and dragged me right in front of her with a fawning grin. This is the friend I was telling you about, the manager from Mars. Miss Susanna Lynn. The famous Miss Lynn. Then he introduced me to Susanna, Kevin. Director at Penguin. The guy's a beast at what he does. He gave me a thumbs up. If you've got any projects, he's your man. Our Kevin's business skills are top-notch. He kept rambling. But my eyes had already locked with Susanna's. She was clinging to Claude. But her gaze paused on my hand holding Rebecca's, just for a second, before she gave me a playful smirk. I've heard so much about you. She extended her hand. Didn't expect to run into a director at a bar. I thought people like you were so swamped with work. You'd be busy doing overtime right now. As she spoke, her fingertips dug sharply into my palm. I twitched slightly and snapped back. I also thought Miss Lynn would be in a very important meeting at this hour. We exchanged a long look. A flicker of danger in her eyes. Then we both let go and turned away. Everyone in the booth was part of our circle. But Susanna and I were secretly married. Apart from our parents. No one else ever knew. We've been married for 7 years. And people around us still think we're single. We often get set up on blind dates. That's Miss Lynn's first love. Someone said, raising a glass with a laugh. Didn't think our Miss Lynn was such a hopeless romantic. Ever since Claude left for abroad 7 years ago. She never got married. Just waited longingly for him. I gotta say, Miss Lynn is the definition of a top-tier single woman. All these years, she's been bombarded with suitors and eligible bachelors. But none of them won her over. A true, loyal romantic. Now that Claude's back, they're together again. I'd say a wedding's coming up soon. Better invite us to the party. Ha ha ha. I lifted my eyelids slightly. Under the hazy lights, Claude had his arm around Susanna's shoulders, staring straight at me with a smug smirk. The kind of look a winner gives a loser. I looked away and forced a cold, indifferent smile. People really are forgetful creatures. Back then, I spent countless nights tossing and turning, unable to breathe from the heartache. I thought I'd never move on. But now, when I look back, it all feels distant. Almost blurry. Who she's with doesn't stir a single ripple in me anymore. Chapter 02. Among everyone present, only Susanna and I had never appeared together before. So our friends assumed we didn't know each other. And someone started introducing me to her. Our Kevin has been single for years. Never really found the right one. He chuckled and added. But just recently he started seeing this younger girl and seems to have finally settled down. Honestly, it's the first time I've seen Kevin take a relationship this seriously. Looks like good news is on the way. Huh. Beside me, Rebecca smiled and held my hand. Her eyes curved into crescents as she said sweetly, I'll be of legal marriage age in 3 months. Even in the sultry atmosphere of the bar, the clarity in her eyes wasn't dimmed. She had that spoiled princess kind of delicate face. But her gaze was pure and unwavering, bright puppy dog. Eyes that locked onto their person and refused to let go. Something stirred in my heart. Meeting Rebecca was completely unexpected. I had just won an award and was invited back to my alma mater to give a lecture. Rebecca wasn't even in my field, she only came to earn some extra activity credits. Who knew that when I was about to leave after the talk, she'd be the first to run up and stop me? I thought she was just a freshman wanting to ask academic questions. So I paused and looked at her patiently. Instead, her eyes were glued to me like a puppy spotting a bone. And she blurted out, Senior, can I get your WeChat? I froze. Rebecca didn't look much like Susanna, though both were beautiful. Their beauty was of a completely different kind. But in that moment, I suddenly saw the 22-year-old Susanna, with the same proud tilt of the chin. She had once looked at me and said, Junior, give me your WeChat. I don't know why, but I instinctively pulled out my phone and scanned her QR code. Later, Rebecca told me that the moment she saw me, it felt like Cupid had hit her heart with an Italian cannon. She was blown to bits. 2 hours of the lecture went in one ear and out the other. She couldn't focus on anything except staring at me. I never tried to deceive her. I told her straight up that I was already married. She was upset for a while. But she still came back to me. As long as you divorce her, before I reach legal marriage age, I'll forgive you. She looked down at the tips of her shoes. And for a moment I could almost imagine floppy little ears drooping behind her head as she said, 1 year and 3 months to go. At the time, Susanna and I had just had a huge fallout. The reason? I found out she had flown overseas to celebrate Claude's birthday. I already knew there was something between Susanna and Claude. The three of us went to the same high school. They were each other's first love. And their families were perfectly matched. Their relationship back then was fiery and intense. As for me, I was just one of the many ordinary guys secretly crushing on Susanna. Susanna and Claude had been together from age 16 to 22, a full 7 years. They only broke up after college. The reason was simple: they were both prideful, elite individuals. Susanna, being the princess she was, never liked to compromise. Their fights kept escalating until Claude couldn't take it anymore and left the country in a fit of anger. Susanna didn't chase after him. And just like that, they broke up. Later, she saw me playing basketball and asked for my contact info right there by the court. Looking back, it's almost laughable. I thought she liked me. Only later did I realize she was just lonely after Claude left, bored, and chose me at random. What followed was only natural. She was heartbroken and needed comfort. Her family was pressuring her to marry, and she needed someone to fill the role. And I, being the seemingly perfect candidate, became that someone. Meanwhile, I was completely in the dark, foolishly falling for her, thinking true love had finally arrived. I was so happy, thinking she felt the same. Remembering it now, I shook my head and let out a bitter laugh. How utterly stupid I was. Chapter 03. Susanna narrowed her eyes. Her slender fingers toyed with the glass in her hand as she curled her lips into a smirk. Kevin's this old and still not married. Don't tell me you're sneaking out behind your wife's back to mess around with some young girl. I glanced at her. In the midst of the noisy crowd, Susanna was, without a doubt, the one who stood out the most. Her body was curvy and full in all the right places. Her features sharp and refined. And her almond-shaped eyes were lined to perfection, lifting ever so slightly at the corners. Time hadn't dulled her at all, it had only made her more intoxicating. She was slouched lazily in the booth in a tight black dress. The thin fabric stretched over her chest in a way that exaggerated her figure. The men around her couldn't stop sneaking glances. I took a sip of my drink and said coolly, "Miss Lynn, it's honestly a bit surprising that you're still single at your age. You're not sneaking out to see an old flame behind your husband's back, are you?" That jab wasn't subtle. The conversation around us instantly died down. No one could figure out why two people who just met were throwing shade at each other like this. After a beat, we both scoffed and looked away at the same time. I didn't even know what flavor the drink left in my mouth. Right in front of me, Susanna and Claude were flirting without shame. Eventually, Claude cupped her chin and poured the amber-colored liquor into her mouth with a deep, slow kiss. Everyone around us started cheering and clapping. When the kiss ended, Susanna wiped the wine from the corner of her mouth and raised a brow at me. If this had been before, I probably would have exploded on the spot. But now, I could even curl my lips into a smile and join in with the crowd. Encore. Susanna's smile froze. Kevin, your turn. You and your girl are the only ones who brought plus ones tonight. Some tipsy friends shoved glasses toward me and Rebecca, grinning and nudging. Let's see what our little sis can do with a kiss. Rebecca came from a wealthy family. Too, she was on par with Susanna in every way. But she'd been raised under strict discipline and never really partied in our circle. According to her, I was her first love. Her ears turned red slowly. Beside her, Susanna's smile completely fell apart. Her hand clenched tightly around her glass. Unlike Susanna, I wasn't into public displays of affection. I raised a hand, ready to politely decline. But Rebecca leaned in. Her eyes were misty. And she looked up at me. Only then did I realize, the girl I'd always thought was still too young had, somehow, already grown up. Her gaze dropped to my lips. And her own were dewy and softly tinted as she whispered, "Baby, Temptress. In that moment, I finally understood what it meant to be both innocent and seductive. Rebecca's face was young, always carrying that unmistakable girlish charm. Even though she stood 168 centimeters tall with curves that turned heads, calling me baby still made her seem like a child. But now, with the flush of alcohol in her cheeks and that subtle pull of her eyes, there was an unintentional allure in her expression. I swallowed hard, faced with that look. I couldn't bring myself to say no. Just as our lips were about to meet, Susanna suddenly stood up. Her face was pale with rage. She moved so abruptly that several glasses on the table toppled and shattered onto the floor with a loud crash. Everyone jumped. Startled, no one had a clue what had just set her off. I instinctively pulled back. But Rebecca just chuckled softly and slid her slender, fair arm around my neck. Then, a kiss, warm with the scent of malt and fermentation, landed gently on my lips. Chapter 04. When I got home and flipped on the lights, Susanna was already sitting on the couch with a dark expression. To be honest, she'd been pulling that long face since the second half of our time at the bar, as if everyone there owed her a few $1,000,000. I ignored her, kicked off my shoes, and headed to the bathroom to shower and sleep. But Susanna spoke up, her tone laced with sarcasm. Working overtime at the bar? Huh. I shrugged. Weren't you having a business meeting there too? Same difference. Between her fingers was a long, slender lady's cigarette that she hadn't even lit. The ash at the end had grown long, but she didn't bother to flick it off, just kept tossing snide remarks at me. Kevin, you've really outdone yourself. Taking little girls out clubbing now. I turned to her, frowning. Susanna, you're the one who said we should stay out of each other's business and live our own lives. So what's this now? Don't tell me you're jealous. Jealous? She let out a cold laugh and stubbed out her cigarette in the ashtray. You're thinking too much. I'm only saying this out of courtesy, after all. We are technically still married. Girls that young are never reliable. I couldn't be bothered to argue. And you, being so mature, aren't exactly a beacon of stability either. With that, I stepped into the bathroom and started undressing. The water had just begun to stream from the shower head when the bathroom door swung open. Before I could even react, a warm, soft body pressed up behind me. I frowned. But Susanna wrapped her arms tightly around me. She whispered into my ear. Think that little girl knows how to please you like I do. Her voice was low and raspy, echoing in the confined space. Kevin. I sneered, turned around, and grabbed her waist, flipping the dynamic in an instant. Susanna's eyes glazed over with desire, a smug smile tugging at her lips as she slowly rose on her toes. But just before her lips could touch mine, I let out a cold laugh and shoved her away. She stumbled back, eyes wide. Kevin, are you fucking insane? I grabbed a towel and wrapped it around my waist, my voice like ice. Get out. Susanna's face darkened, anger building behind her eyes. You're really that disgusted by me? She stood there in lace lingerie. My whole body tensed, frozen in place as another image suddenly overlapped with the one in front of me, the photo Claude had sent me. It was on Claude's birthday. I had gotten into a car accident while heading to a client meeting and ended up in the hospital. Meanwhile, Susanna had been in Claude's bed, naked, marked, wrapped in his sheets. Claude sent me a photo. He didn't say a word, but I felt it like a thunderclap, like a slap across the face. My ears rang until all I could hear was a dull roar. I clenched my jaw so tightly it hurt, forcing back the rising nausea as I pointed to the door. I'll say this one last time. Get out. Susanna stared at me for a long moment, her fists clenched, her eyes swimming with emotions I couldn't read. Then, without a word, she turned and slammed the door behind her. I closed my eyes. Warm water poured over me, but it couldn't wash away the cold that had seeped into my bones. Her touch made me feel sick. Utterly sick. I found out Susanna had never let go of Claude 3 years into our marriage. Back then, things between us weren't bad. She was a decent wife, beautiful, pleasant, and definitely not boring in bed. She didn't act like a spoiled rich girl. She'd come home after work, and she never missed an anniversary. She'd cook for me, prop her chin in her palm with a smile, and ask, "Does it taste good?" Sometimes, we'd fall asleep in each other's arms, like a real couple in love. Until one day, during sex, a drop of sweat from my forehead landed On her collarbone, and she moaned the name. Claude. It hit me like a sledgehammer. My mind went blank. It was like finding one cockroach and suddenly realizing your whole house was infested. I started noticing more things. WeChat messages she wouldn't delete. Photos she kept that were worn from being handled too much. A secret account she used to snoop. I completely lost it. I argued. Begged. Threatened. I tried everything. But it was all useless. In the end, Susanna just said coldly, "If you can't take it, divorce me." That was when I realized the truth, that everything I'd believed over the past few years had been one-sided. Susanna never loved me. Her heart had always belonged to someone else. No matter how many years I stayed by her side, I would never measure up to those 7 years she had with Claude. I imprisoned myself in that pain for who knows how long. The hurt was like a venomous snake that had burrowed into my chest. And every night it would sink its fangs into my heart. Until that day, when she flew to the UK to celebrate Claude's birthday. I spent that night alone, staring out the window. Even now, I still remember how round, how bright, how cold the moon was. That night, I told myself, it ends here. I gave up. Susanna's mom never liked Claude. There had been bad blood between the Lin and Song families years ago. Her mom, on the other hand, liked me. She took good care of me over the years and even scolded Susanna on my behalf more than once. A year ago, her mother fell seriously ill. The doctors said if she was lucky, she'd last another year or two. Susanna didn't want to upset her, so we agreed to wait until after her mother passed to get a divorce. As compensation, she offered me 7% of her company's shares. I said yes. Not for the money, but out of gratitude for her mother's kindness over the years. From that day on, we went our separate ways. Chapter 05. Susanna didn't come home at all for the next week. We only got into the same car. Again on her mother's birthday. Try to act like a decent husband later. Will you? Susanna said. One hand on the steering wheel. And make sure your little kitten, or puppy or whatever doesn't call you. If we slip up, say goodbye to your precious 7% shares. I let out a cold laugh. Worry about yourself first. Susanna's face darkened. And she said nothing more. Her mother lived in a villa halfway up the mountain. We drove along the winding road, climbing higher and higher, until suddenly Susanna's phone rang. She glanced at the screen and immediately picked up. I turned my face away instinctively. A few years ago, I used to call Susanna often. We were newlyweds back then. And I couldn't help but miss her constantly. But she rarely answered. Whenever I asked, she'd say she was too busy with work. I was stupid enough to believe her. Only later did I understand, if someone matters to you, you'll always find the time. If they don't, even if you're free all day, you won't give them a single second. Whatever was said on the other end. Susanna suddenly slammed on the brakes and pulled the car over. I nearly smacked into the windshield. What the hell are you doing? Susanna's expression was serious. Something came up. You go by yourself. I stared at her. Are you fucking insane? We're halfway up a mountain. At least drop me off at the top. It's urgent. Claude needs me. Get out. She said. Impatient. The seat lifted automatically. And she shoved me out so hard I nearly twisted my ankle. Before I could even curse her out properly, the sports car peeled off with a roar, leaving only exhaust behind. Susanna. What the fuck is wrong with you? I was fuming. Practically stomping in place. But she was already gone. Not even a glimpse of her taillights left. I took out my phone. Only to find no signal in the mountains. I stood there for a long moment. Then gritted my teeth and started walking uphill. Susanna's mom had always treated me well, maybe not like her own son, but never once unfairly. Even though they had a private chef and housekeeper, she always insisted on cooking for me herself. She memorized my favorite dishes and would go out of her way to make them whenever I visited. Susanna was jealous of that. She once complained that in all her years, she'd barely eaten anything her mother cooked. When her mom found out about Susanna cheating for the first time, she was furious. Even though she was already sick, she forced herself into the kitchen, dug out a rolling pin, and beat Susanna with it. Kevin married you to put up with this crap. What kind of spell has that Claude cast on you? How could you treat Kevin this way? Her time is running out. Every visit could be the last. Susanna may be heartless, but I'm not. The mountain path was steep. And though my old leg injury from The car accident usually didn't show. It hadn't fully healed. Before long. The pain was unbearable. Still. I kept walking. Gritting my teeth with every step. By the time I got close to the villa, I could barely feel my knee anymore. Just then. My phone finally rang. It was a friend who worked at a hospital, one of the few who knew the truth about me and Susanna. He didn't speak at first. Then, in a hesitant voice, he said, "Kevin. I just saw Susanna. Come to the hospital with a guy. They even went to the OBGYN department." He sent me a photo on WeChat. In the photo, Susanna stood just outside a hospital room, gently supporting Claude. She looked genuinely concerned. My friend didn't say another word. Probably didn't want to make it worse. I just stood there, staring at the picture. Then, a raindrop fell onto my phone screen. I looked up in a daze and realized it was raining. Mountain rain came fast and hard. Within minutes, I was drenched. The chill seeping deep into my bones. It was too late to turn back. So I dragged myself up. Step by step. The rain was freezing. Swept in by gusts of wind. And for some reason, it made me think of something from long ago. Back in high school. After night classes. I'd stumbled upon a group of thugs. Cornering a girl in our school uniform. She slapped the ringleader across the face. Refusing to back down. Enraged. He punched her in the stomach. She doubled over with a grunt. But still didn't beg. That only made them angrier. I was young and impulsive back then. I yelled. "Hey! What the hell do you think you're doing?" They ignored me. But I couldn't just watch them beat her like that. So I charged in and started fighting. I'd trained in Sonda for a bit. And I fought dirty. A few punches later. They were on the ground. Then two of them pulled out baseball bats. One of them raised it and swung straight at her head. If that hit, she'd probably die on the spot. So I gritted my teeth and jumped in front of her. The bat slammed into my leg. The pain was excruciating. I collapsed immediately. They thought I was with the girl. And their attacks got even more brutal. I took a few more hits before the cops showed up and they scattered. I still remember grabbing her wrist. Coughing and saying hoarsely, "Don't be scared." After that, everything's a blur. When I came to, I was in the hospital. The doctor told me my leg was fractured. With multiple injuries. They'd already done surgery. My parents took me back to our hometown so they could take care of me. I'd nearly forgotten that incident until my car accident years later. When the doctor asked me if I'd had leg surgery before, she told me the old injury might affect my recovery. And that I needed a family member to sign the surgical consent form. I called Susanna. She said she was in a meeting and couldn't come. So I signed it myself. The next night, lying in a hospital bed, I received that photo from Claude. That's when I realized there was no meeting. It was Claude's birthday. And Susanna had gone to celebrate with him. She brought herself to him. Across the ocean. The hospital room window wasn't very clean. The moon outside looked huge. Glowing white with a cold, harsh light. My heart ached so badly I felt like it was being pulled apart. The pain didn't stop there, it spread. Invading every organ inside me. People say a man shouldn't talk about heartache. Sounds weak. But that night, there was no other word for it. Susanna was in Claude's bed. Wrapped in his arms. And I was alone. Sleepless. In a hospital room. That was the night I finally woke up. I didn't want to wait for her anymore. Chapter 06. I rang the doorbell of the villa. And the housekeeper was startled when she saw me. "Sir. What are you?" I waved my hand. "I'll go take a shower first." I didn't want Susanna's mom to see me like this. She didn't have much time left. And there was no need for me to upset her any further. After showering and tidying up, I finally entered Susanna's mother's room. She lay quietly in bed. The once elegant, beautiful woman had withered into a frail figure. As fragile as dry tinder. Her face was pale. Drained of color. The sound of the door opening stirred her. And she slowly opened her eyes. A faint light appearing in them. "Kevin. You're here." I sat beside her and took her hand. "Mom. You look better than before. You seem more spirited." She coughed twice and forced out a difficult smile. "There's not much time left." I didn't reply. Picking lighter topics from the past few days to talk about. Eventually, the conversation started to fade. There wasn't much left to say. So I gradually fell silent. Susanna's mom leaned back against the pillow. The room was silent. I gently patted her hand. "Mom. You should rest." I'll come see you again next time. As I got up to leave, she suddenly called out to me. Kevin. Divorce Susanna. I froze. What? She's still entangled with that man. Isn't she? No. I forced a smile. Mom. Don't think too much. Kevin. Your eyes don't smile anymore. Susanna's mom looked at me seriously. She pointed to her mouth. Your mouth is smiling. Then she pointed to her heart. But here. It's not smiling. You're not happy. She had to pause for breath after every few words. Yet she insisted on finishing what she was saying. I was speechless. Don't force yourself for my sake. You're still young. She managed a weak smile. Divorce her. Live your own life. I don't know why. But the eyes of a 30-year-old man suddenly stung with tears. Susanna's mom patted my hand. You're a good kid. Don't let me. This old woman. Hold you back anymore. Mom. My throat tightened. And I couldn't say anything. She just smiled gently at me. Just knowing that you came to see me makes me very happy. With that, she struggled to open a drawer and handed me a folder. Inside is my company's shares, 13%. Over the years, Susanna's treated you badly. Let this be my compensation for her. She pressed the folder into my hand. You have to accept it. Take care of yourself from now on. I was stunned. Immediately trying to refuse. Mom. I can't accept this. She just smiled and patted my hair. Don't sacrifice yourself anymore. Chapter 07. That night. I didn't go home. I went straight to Rebecca's place. She lit up when she saw me. But the moment she grabbed my hand, her expression changed. Why are you so hot? I touched my forehead and only then realized I had a fever. Rebecca helped me onto the bed and tucked me in. Then left the room for a moment. When she returned, she was holding a steaming cup of ginger tea. She gently helped me sit up. Drink something warm. You need to sweat it out. Then she crawled into bed and wrapped her arms around me. I frowned. You'll catch it too. She kissed my cheek affectionately. I'm not afraid. Then she opened her phone. Feeling bored. Want me to tell you a story? I chuckled. A grown man listening to bedtime stories. Seriously. Rebecca ignored me. She cleared her throat. Arms still looped around my neck. Once upon a time, there was a princess. Her skin was white as snow. Her hair black as ebony. Her lips red as blood, but her heart was black. So, she was called the Black-Hearted Princess. The prince kissed the princess. And she coughed up the poisoned apple and came back to life. Then they got married. I thought the story was over and started to close my eyes. But Rebecca kept going. But after the wedding, the prince found out that the black-hearted princess was a serial cheater and treated him horribly. So he stuffed the poisoned apple back into her mouth and let her die for real. Then he married a new princess, young, beautiful, and kind. And they lived happily ever after. I let out a helpless laugh. What kind of messed up fairy tale is that? Rebecca gave me a quick glance. A mischievous smirk tugging at her lips. Her small hand gently patting my chest. The night breeze stirred the pale curtains. And the faint scent of gardenias drifted in from the roadside. Occasionally, a car passed by with a soft hum. And the outside lights filtered through the fabric, casting a warm, gentle glow. Rebecca's body was warm. Her arms stayed wrapped around my neck, refusing to let go, like a little girl clinging to her most precious treasure. The feeling was strange, foreign, but comforting. Even though she was so much younger than me, I felt safe. Right before I drifted off, I heard a soft sigh by my ear. Hurry up and get divorced. Your princess is getting impatient. Chapter 08. Early the next morning, I went back home. Susanna was sitting on the couch. She frowned. Out of habit. The moment she saw me. Where were you last night? I called and you didn't pick up. I'd fallen asleep at Rebecca's place. And my phone had been on silent. Sure enough. When I checked, I saw 3 missed calls from Susanna. I replied flatly. Not your business. Susanna's expression darkened. Then, somewhat awkwardly, she added. Claude wasn't feeling well yesterday. He's always had health issues. No need to explain. I changed into my slippers. My voice impatient. I don't care. There was a time when I desperately wanted to know Susanna's every move. Just hearing her and Claude's names in the same sentence used to wreck me. But now, I didn't even want to hear about it. I came back to get divorced. I threw the divorce papers at her. Your mom already knows everything. She's transferred her shares to me. You can keep your 7%. I want this divorce finalized ASAP. If you stall, I'll take those cheating photos. Claude sent me straight to the court. Susanna froze. I'd kept that photo all along to remind myself of the humiliation. Every time I looked at it, my love for Susanna withered a little more. Until nothing was left. I thought we agreed to wait for now. She frowned. Kevin. You're really in that much of a rush to be with that girl. She let out a bitter laugh. You think she's going to be better than me? She's way younger than you. What could you two possibly talk about? Even if you stay together for 10 years. Do you think the love will last? She shook her head. Sarcasm all over her face. Kevin. You're still so naive. I turned and looked straight at her. The woman I'd once been thrilled to marry now looked absolutely repulsive. Still better than a two-faced cheater. I sneered. Susanna. Do you know how disgusting it is for someone like you to ruin another person's life and still act like you've done nothing wrong? She stiffened. Speechless. Other people's lives aren't props for your cheap drama. You think we're all just background extras in your little affair. I stepped forward and stared her down. Each word laced with mockery. When you walk around with Claude, do people know he's messing around with someone else's wife? Susanna shot to her feet. Stop saying things like that. What you two did is way worse than anything I'm saying. I sneered again. You think I want to waste my breath on you? Sign the damn papers. After this, we go our separate ways. If you want to put his photo on your family altar, I won't stop you. Susanna's eyes turned icy. After a long silence, she curled her lips into a smile, cold and lifeless. Fine. You said it yourself. Don't regret it. Kevin. I snorted and handed her a pen. Let's go. Hurry up. Her face was like a storm cloud as she snatched the pen, signed her name through gritted teeth, and shoved the agreement back at me. There. Happy now? I nodded. The Civil Affairs office opens at 9. See you there. Don't be late. Chapter 09. From the moment Susanna signed her name, I'd been in a good mood. It was the last day of our marriage. I couldn't wait to tell Rebecca. She was thrilled too. FRFR. Then let's go tomorrow morning and register ours too. Save you a trip. I'll go home and grab my household book right now. Took a lot of effort to calm her down and convince her to wait until we'd met each other's parents. That day, we were attending a mutual friend's wedding. Susanna and I arrived in separate cars. But somehow we were still seated at the same table. I treated her like air. She picked up food from the center of the table and placed it on Claude's plate. Smiling sweetly. Eat more. Then, without a trace, she glanced at me. Claude's expression stiffened. Susanna. You know I don't eat seafood. The rest of the table scrambled to ease the awkwardness. You two really are made for each other. Lovers reunited at last. Is the wedding coming soon? Let us know, we'll be there. Susanna said nothing. Claude forced a smile and looked at me. Yeah. You all better come when it happens. Another friend laughed. You two go way back. From high school to now. I remember some thug had a crush on you and tried to block you after school. Right. Claude came to the rescue. You had to marry your savior after that. Claude's expression changed. He quickly tried to shift the topic. That's ancient history. It's not like that's why she chose to be with me. But Susanna interrupted him. It was. Claude looked visibly uncomfortable. I lifted my eyes. So there was that kind of history between them too. Didn't matter to me. I lowered my head again. Uninterested. What a coincidence. Another friend at the table suddenly said. Kevin once saved a girl too. 5 or 6 guys were harassing her after school. And when she tried to fight back, they started beating her with baseball bats. If Kevin hadn't jumped in, that girl might have died. He had to take a semester off and even transferred schools. That hit to his leg was brutal. To this day. He stopped mid-sentence. Noticing the look on my face. I didn't really mind. It was so long ago. And I didn't save her because I wanted some kind of thank you. But Susanna suddenly stood up. Face pale. The cups and dishes clattered as she bumped the table. Wine spilled down her dress. But she didn't even notice. Her eyes were locked on me. Trembling. What did you say? Claude's face twisted in panic. He stood up quickly, trying to pull her aside. Susanna. Your dress, let's go change it. Come on. But she yanked her hand away. Gritting her teeth. Kevin, when did you save that girl? I had no idea why she was so shaken. Everyone at the table was staring. I didn't want to ruin our friend's wedding. So I tried to recall. I don't remember the exact day. Summer of 2014. Maybe August. Sit down. It's their wedding today. Susanna's expression turned strange. As if she couldn't believe it. As if she was scared. What did you say to her at the end? Even after all these years. The memory was still vivid, burned into me by pain. I said, don't be afraid. That's what I said. I think. Susanna collapsed into her seat. Her expression blurred between tears and laughter. And in the end, she covered her face with both hands. Claude's face was pale as death. His entire body trembled. At this point, even an idiot could piece it together. I raised an eyebrow. You're telling me the girl who got her ass beat that night was you? Well, damn. I gave her a smile. Eyes crinkling. If I'd known it was you, I would have let them finish the job. Chapter 10. I walked out right after those words. The rest of what happened, I only heard from a friend later that night. Turns out after you saved Susanna back then, she went looking everywhere for you. But Claude was there that night too, he saw everything. He liked Susanna. So he just took your place. You should have seen Susanna's face when she found out. Scared the hell out of everyone. Then she sent me a video. In it, Claude looked awful, his voice trembling under the strain. Yes. I admit I lied to you back then. But what about all the years we spent together? Was none of that real? You said you only loved me. Kevin might have saved you. But you didn't love him. If you didn't love him then, what's changed now just? Because you found out he was the one. Susanna's face was like ice. The way she looked at Claude now had none of the warmth she once had, only the cold fury of someone staring down a lifelong enemy. She shoved him away hard. Her voice sharp and bitter. Claude. This isn't over. My friend sounded way too gleeful. Claude screwed. I heard his dad has a secret son from an affair and plans to leave everything to that kid. Claude only came back to cling to Susanna for support. But Susanna cut off all his cards. Took back the villa and the car. And from the way she sounded, it's just the beginning. I put down the phone. My heart heavy. I wasn't nearly as calm as I looked. What a fucking mess. Susanna only liked Claude because he stole the credit for something I did. Then she turned around and used that to ruin me. In this twisted triangle, I was the biggest loser. Did I hate her? I asked myself. I nearly lost my leg saving her. To this day, I haven't fully recovered. And what did she give me in return? She destroyed my marriage. How could I not hate her? If I could go back to that night 10 years ago, I swear, I wouldn't save Susanna again. Susanna came home late that night, reeking of alcohol. Completely drunk. I reminded her. We're getting divorced tomorrow. Don't forget. But Susanna didn't even respond properly. She slurred as she dropped onto the couch. I cut Claude off. He lied to me. I pulled back all the investments from his family. They're going under soon. He's lost everything. Are you satisfied now? I couldn't help but laugh coldly. What about you? Aren't you even worse? Susanna froze. Then, out of nowhere, she collapsed to her knees in front of me. I jumped, instinctively backing away, only to see her raise her hand and slap herself across the face. Hard. The crack echoed in the room. Her lip split and blood trickled out. What the hell are you doing? I was stunned. Susanna looked up at me, her eyes full of desperation. I know I was wrong. You can hit me. Yell at me, whatever you want. I'll make it up to you. Kevin. I still hold 42% of the company shares. They're all yours. Okay. Just, forgive me. She lowered her head, shoulders trembling. The room fell silent, filled only by the soft, pitiful sobbing of someone abandoned. A sound like a wounded animal. I said nothing. Back then, my parents had wanted to press charges over the alley incident. But then we heard those guys got jumped, 3 had their Achilles tendons slashed. Some were never quite sane again. My parents dropped it, not wanting me dragged through endless police statements and hearings. So I never saw Susanna again after that night. But Claude had a point. Even if she'd known I was the one who saved her, would she have loved me? Maybe she would have still chosen Claude. Maybe none of it would have changed. Now, it didn't matter anymore. You signing the divorce papers is all the thanks I need. My voice was flat. No. Susanna crawled over, clutching my leg in panic. I won't divorce you. I know I was wrong. I'll make it right. I swear I'll never look at another man. Claude and we're over. Please. Kevin. I didn't expect this drama. I snapped. You two went to the OBGYN together. He knocked you up. Didn't he? You really think I'm going to raise his kid like some idiot? Susanna sobbed uncontrollably. Her arrogance was gone, she looked completely broken. No. No. There's no baby. He was just feeling unwell. And asked me to go with him. He said he had some lingering issues from back then. I felt like I owed him. I went to the OBGYN to pick up meds for a friend. That's all. Maybe the alcohol loosened her tongue. Because Susanna was nothing like before. She opened her mouth. And after a pause. Whispered hoarsely. I actually did like you, but I always felt like I owed Claude. So I kept saying yes to whatever he wanted. When you said you wanted a divorce, my first reaction was no. Kevin. I couldn't take it anymore. I slapped her. Hard. She let out a small cry and turned her head away. Susanna. Don't insult the word love. You disgust me. I stared coldly at her. If I'd known this day would come. I really wish you'd died in that alley. Susanna went pale. Staring at me in disbelief. I grabbed the divorce papers and slammed the door behind me. Chapter 11. The next day. Just as expected. Susanna ghosted me. She never showed up at the Civil Affairs Bureau. She called me countless times. But the message in all of them was the same. She'd compensate me, but divorce. No way. I was furious. Grinding my teeth in frustration. That damned woman had already wasted so many years of my life. Now that I was finally about to move on, she still refused to let go. If she wanted to play dirty, then she couldn't blame me for doing the same. I turned around and sold the 13% of company shares her mother had given me, too. The second largest shareholder. She already owned 32%. So with the new shares, she now held 45%, more than Susanna. Just like that. Susanna was removed from her position as chairwoman. Years of her hard work handed over to someone else. She called me the same day. Her voice sounded shaken. Kevin. Do you really hate me that much? I'm done being tangled up with you. I said coldly. There was a long silence on the other end. Then. She said. Do whatever you want, as long as you're happy. I've already missed you once. I can't afford to miss you again. I wanted to slam my head into the wall. In the end. I went straight to the court and filed for divorce. Submitting the evidence of her cheating with Claude. Just 2 court summons. If she didn't agree to the first, she'd have no choice but to accept after the second. The whole thing got ugly. Because of the shares, the property, and all the noise. Everyone at the company found out we were fighting our way through a messy divorce. I was so swamped I barely had time to breathe, let alone see Rebecca. But as if all that weren't enough, just as I was working late into the night sorting out the divorce assets, Susanna called again. Her voice was trembling so badly she could barely speak. Kevin, you need to come, right now. My mom's not going to make it. By the time I arrived, Susanna's mom had already regained consciousness. Her face was pale as ash. She looked terrible. I lowered my head, feeling a little ashamed. She had given me those shares, and I turned around and sold them to her daughter's enemy. That was crossing the line. But she didn't blame me. She only raised her hand, barely, and motioned for me to come over. I walked to her bedside, eyes brimming with tears. Mom. Susanna had already broken down, sobbing uncontrollably, clutching her mother's hand as if trying to hold on to her life. Everyone has to face this day, her mother said weakly, forcing a smile and patting Susanna's hand. Don't cry. Her voice grew weaker and weaker. But she still pressed on. Susanna. I heard you don't want a divorce. Susanna wiped her tears. Mom. Claude lied to me. I didn't know Kevin was the one who saved me that night. I can't lose him again. Her mom sighed softly. Kevin has always treated you well, from the day you got married. He stayed by your side every single day. Even when you ran off to mess around. He waited for you to come back. And now. She paused for breath. Then added. Now you know he's the one who saved you. She closed her eyes. Susanna panicked. Mom. Don't scare me. Please. Wake up. Her mother opened her eyes again and, using every bit of strength she had left, whispered. I have one last wish, you must promise me. Tears poured from Susanna's eyes as she nodded frantically. Whatever it is. Mom, I promise. I swear. Divorce Kevin. She said, gripping Susanna's hand tightly. You two were never meant to be. Don't drag him down anymore. He's a good kid. I felt a rush of emotions in my chest, messy. Tangled. Impossible to describe. I never imagined that in the end. Even Susanna's mother would be the one trying to set me free. Susanna froze. Then, inch by inch, she slid down beside the bed, finally collapsing onto the floor in despair. Her fingers, clenched so tightly they turned white blue, began to bleed from the cracked edges of her nails. Finally, she let go of her mother's hand and covered her face. Her whole body shook violently. Her sobs were hoarse, broken, as though her soul was being torn apart. Okay, she whispered. Mom, I promise you, I'll agree to the divorce. At that moment, her mother's hand went limp and dropped. Chapter 12. By the time we finished handling Susanna's mother's funeral, several days had passed. Susanna and I met at the Civil Affairs Bureau. Just as we'd agreed. She had lost a lot of weight. Her clothes hung loosely, swaying in the breeze. Do we really have to divorce? Just a second before stepping inside, she suddenly spoke, gripping the divorce papers tightly in both hands. You used to love me so much. Now I know I was wrong. Can't we start over? Her expression was almost humble. You can punish me however you want. Treat me however you like. I'm just begging you not to leave me. Please, is that okay? She covered her face and sobbed. I won't care about that woman. I swear. You can do whatever you want out there. Just come home. I looked at the sky in the distance. After a pause, I asked, Susanna, who do you really love? Is it me, Claude, or the memory of the person who saved you back then? If Claude hadn't lied to you back then, would you still have fallen for him? She answered quickly. Desperate. Of course not. I smiled and shook my head. It doesn't matter anymore. If you still have even a shred of gratitude for how I treated you, then let me go. Susanna, I truly, honestly, don't love you anymore. The wind tousled the hair on her forehead, and I thought I saw her eyes turn red. Then she forced out a broken smile. All right, Kevin. I'll let you go. In the end. Her voice sounded as though something was stuck in her throat. Each word seemed harder and harder to say. The house. The car. The stocks. The savings, they're all yours. I'll walk away with nothing. She pulled out a new agreement. Call it compensation. You don't want me? Then at least take the money. I glanced at the divorce papers, stunned. Susanna wasn't just giving me half. She was giving me everything. All 42% of her company shares. Every last property. Every asset. Every cent. She didn't keep a single thing. I didn't want anything more tying me to her. I shook my head. There's no need. She gave a bitter laugh. If you don't take it, I won't sign. I had no choice but to write down my name. I didn't ask her what she'd do from here. Whatever she did, it had nothing to do with me anymore. I wouldn't go soft again. Divorcing was much faster than marrying. Before long, we were handed that little green booklet. As we walked out the door, Susanna looked at me with a complicated expression. Her eyes locked onto mine. I raised a hand slightly. Goodbye. She said nothing. I drove my Bentley into the distance. Through the rearview mirror, I saw Susanna still standing there, unmoving. She looked like she was saying something, but I couldn't hear it anymore. Soon, traffic passed between us. Our worlds parted ways, vanishing from each other's view. I turned my eyes back to the road ahead. Goodbye, Susanna. I hope we never meet again. Extra, Susanna's perspective. 2 years after my divorce from Kevin, I ran into him at a bridal shop. I was there to pick up the wedding dress my cousin had ordered. As I turned to leave, I saw a woman coming out of the fitting room, holding up the skirt of her dress. He was looking at her, his expression full of tenderness that almost seemed to melt. I froze in place, my eyes glued to him. It had been a long time since we last met. He looked much better now. The woman spun around in front of him and jogged toward him, her eyes sparkling. How do I look? He smiled, his eyes full of warmth. You look great. For some reason, my mind wandered back to many years ago. Back when we had just gotten married. He had been just as excited, pulling me to see wedding dresses. What was my reaction back then? I think I was always lost in thoughts of Claude. Impatiently looking down Everything's fine. Just pick whichever one. Before we left, I glanced over. He was standing there. His shoulders that had been so rigid now sagging. The smile on his lips had faded, replaced with an air of quiet loneliness. I felt a sharp pain in my heart. And when I looked back at him, I saw him staring at the woman across from him for a long while, before pulling out his phone to take a picture of her. Then, he waved. And the two of them huddled together, whispering about something. I think this one makes my arms look too big. What do you think? This one. I think the third one is better. I asked the sales assistant. And the embroidery and rhinestones were all hand-stitched. Flown in from Paris. Now that you mention it. The third one does look great. Don't rush. Try on some more. We'll swap it out if we find a better one. For now, let's settle on this one. Okay. She treated him better than I did. I should be happy for him. But for some reason, I felt a lump rise in my throat. Tears welling up in my eyes as I struggled to breathe. He was supposed to be mine. It was me who lost him. And now someone else was making him happy. These 2 years without Kevin made me realize just how much I still couldn't let go of him. I thought about him every single day. Sometimes, after drinking, I'd dream about him. Not the man he had become after. Everything fell apart between us. But the man he was when we first got married. He'd cook my favorite dishes when I came home from work. And before bed, he'd rub my feet whenever I complained of sore legs. In the mornings, before leaving, he'd insist on giving me a kiss. At the time, I didn't think much of it. Sometimes I even found it annoying. But in my dreams, I would cry from happiness. When I woke up the next morning, the bed beside me was empty. The emptiness and sadness hit me so hard. I could barely breathe. I had developed a drinking problem. Because when I was drunk, I could briefly see him loving me again. I knew it wasn't good. But I couldn't stand it. I kept replaying memories of him. Falling in love with him. All over again in those memories. Until I couldn't get out of them. How stupid. Why did I only realize how much I loved him after he left? I didn't know how long I stood there. But I couldn't tear my eyes away from him. I almost greedily watched him. Unwilling to miss a single second. Even though he had fallen in love with another woman. I kept staring at him. The pain grew deeper with each passing second. But I couldn't pull my eyes away. Soon, the woman had picked her wedding dress. She walked up to him. And they left the store together. He casually glanced up and saw me. Then he froze. The woman looked at me too. And then I recognized her, the young girl he had been seeing before. Now, she had grown into a more mature woman. Her youthful innocence gone. His voice was calm. It's been a while. My voice trembled as I struggled to speak. It has. I wanted to say so much more. I wanted to ask how he was doing. I wanted to ask if she was better than me. If she wasn't, could he come back to me? But in the end, I couldn't say anything at all. He waved his hand, clearly not wanting to speak with me, and took the woman's hand as they walked away. As they got farther, I heard her ask him, "Your ex-wife? She's changed a lot." I almost didn't recognize her. He responded flatly, "She's not important. No need to recognize her." They got into a car and drove off with the roar of the engine. I stood there, watching the car disappear down the street. I remembered that when we got divorced, it was the same. I watched him walk away. But this time, it felt like a real farewell. He seemed happy. That's good. As for me, maybe I'll never be happy again. But that's okay. As long as he's happy. Kevin. I wish you happiness. This time. I truly mean it.